I'm James Bruce, you're watching Tabletop Dungeon, and I think Zombicide Invader is the best Zombicide yet. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you why and explain exactly what's new. Zombicide Invader is a new entry, a new generation of Zombicide, which for the first time sees our survivors in a mining facility on the planet PK-L7, where they're being attacked by hordes of Xenos or aliens. It retails for just under $100 from cmon Inc. It's for 1 to 6 players and takes 60 to 120 minutes per game. So as with most iterations of the Zombicide game, this one brings some unique gameplay elements, some of which will undoubtedly be carried forward into other future iterations of Zombicide. Let's take a closer look at exactly what's new in Zombicide Invader. So firstly, this is the first time we see two distinct character classes, civilians and soldiers. Now, apart from being more heavily armored and therefore able to take more wounds, the soldier class is also restricted to only searching for items in the secure red zones on the board, while civilians can search anywhere. However, whichever character class you play, you will need to keep them safe, because in Zombicide Invader, if one survivor dies, you lose the entire mission. Another fairly significant change is that in Invader, the environment type is taken to a new level. Now, we've seen towers and water type environments before in Green Horde and Black Plague. However, in Invader, the outdoors is an entirely more harsh environment, and in order to even go out there, you'll need to pick up an oxygen canister from a special room for every single one of your characters. Though, of course, one character can pick up more than one tank and then distribute it out if you want to do that. Also outside, since it's a vacuum and devoid of oxygen, traditional bullet type weaponry won't work. You'll need to either pick up a prototype weapon, or use hand-to-hand weaponry. Inside the facility, survivors can open or close a door as a free action once per turn. Zombies will then take a turn in order to destroy the door before being able to get to you. However, once destroyed, you can't then reseal the door. It's permanently destroyed. So this is a welcome change. No longer having to spend turns just trying to knock down a door is definitely a positive. So I mentioned prototype weapons. These are special weaponry that requires an energy source to operate. That's a separate card that you'll have to pick up and then attach to that weapon. Prototype weapons can be used both indoors and outdoors since they're energy based, and are generally also a slight upgrade on their non-prototype counterparts. You'll also find other weapon upgrades that can be attached to regular weapons in order to give them some sort of a bonus. In addition, each character has 2 body slots for other equipped items like a flashlight, body armor, or the O2 tank, which allows you to go outside. Also new in Invader, we find a sentry turret and controllable robot. Now, these can both be remote controlled if you start with a character that has that skill or acquires the remote bot skill, while the turret can also be controlled by anyone in the same zone. I guess they just jump on it and start firing. Then we have this new mold spawn component, a sort of fungus tentacled thing that spews forth aliens and slowly takes over the map. It's a classic sci-fi trope and definitely feels appropriate here. But in terms of gameplay, the rules for the mold spawn can be a little confusing, I think. So this mold can be on the map at the start of the mission, or whenever the abomination comes onto the board, it's accompanied by a mold spawn. The space where it spawns is now mold. As it moves around, it'll generate more mold. But things get a little bit complicated from there. So mold has both an active and inactive state. The inactive one looks like the side that's sort of burning, and in gameplay terms it acts like a corridor for line of sight rules. Active mold, however, creates a dense cloud of mold spores and behaves like a room, so you can shoot into it but not through it. Now here's the kicker. If at any point you have an unbroken line of active mold between 2 Xenos spawn points, it's game over. And in addition, once any zone is overtaken by mold, anything that was in that room is destroyed, including objectives or the oxygen generator if it was a special room, and you can no longer search it. Now bear in mind that losing objectives in this way may automatically lose you the mission. Once a zone is infected with mold, it cannot be recovered. The only thing that you can do is turn an active into an inactive mold by burning it. But just like Dragonfire in previous versions of Zombicide, burning something is quite an involved process. You'll need to find the right weapon and the right canister to attach to it. On top of that, if you turn over a mold spawn card, which you'll find in both the Xenos and the inventory deck, then every active mold zone on the board will spawn some Xenos. As with all Zombicide games, if you miss the Kickstarter and buy at retail, I think you'll feel a little bit annoyed about the things that you've missed. Now, as well as the additional characters, which are really just a aesthetic skin change on the game, in Invader you will have also missed some fundamentally different gameplay elements, like different basic Xenos types, like the Xenomorphs, which move 3 zones, Seeker Workers, which get extra activations whenever other Seekers are spawned, and Flingers, which, as the name suggests, have a ranged attack. Now, as far as I can tell, this is the first time that exclusive basic zombie types have been bundled in with the Kickstarter rather than available separately after, like sort of Deadeye Walkers. These were a fundamentally new type of zombie, but you could always buy them at retail afterwards. So this does seem to suggest that Invader is a sort of one-off in the Zombicide series. The fact that the Kickstarter included Darkside, a second standalone game in the Invader series, does also seem to suggest this is the case. But enough of the rules changes. What are my thoughts on the game? Overall, I'd say Invader really plays a lot more like a puzzle than any of the previous Zombicide games. The use of remote bots is particularly interesting because if you move or fire them, they are treated like survivors by the attacking Xenos. And this leads to some pretty interesting tactical decisions. Do you risk activating them in order to distract some of the Xenos and take them out? Or do you leave them alone that turn so the aliens will turn their attention elsewhere? Both the static turret and the remote-controlled bot have some very powerful weaponry, but are very weak. A single hit will destroy them, and they don't have any sort of defensive saving rolls. The concentrated fire rule is also a welcome addition that I haven't mentioned yet, and this means that you can direct all of your attacks to a single target, though standard targeting rules do still apply. No longer do you need to wait in order to get a minimum 3 damage weapon to take down an abomination. Instead, if your weapon is rolling 3 dice and you get 3 successes, 3 hits, then you can take them out. So this makes abominations and tanks or fatties a lot less scary than they were in previous versions of Zombicide. Now anyone with multiple attacks can take them down, instead of having to run away and endlessly search for a weapon that can do it. Now that's not to say it won't still go horribly wrong sometimes. Of course, it's still based on a dice roll, but it does mean that there's always a chance that pretty much any of the weapons will be able to take out something more powerful than just the most basic enemy types. You don't feel so helpless anymore and frankly frustrated because no one has the weapon that can kill it yet. On the flip side, to counter that, you now have the mold on the board, which really ramps the difficulty up regardless of whether your characters have leveled up or not. Each time that abomination spawns, you're pretty much going to be getting some more mold, whether you like it or not. Again, managing that mold effectively is just another element of that glorious puzzle. So I do think that Zombicide Invader is the best Zombicide yet, but as to exactly why, I can't quite put my finger on it. Thematically and aesthetically, I'm really not a huge sci-fi fan. I do prefer the fantasy and magic aspect of Green Horde or Black Plague. The standard worker minis in Invader just don't do it for me. But in terms of gameplay, Invader feels a lot more accelerated to me. Events happen faster and the whole game is more dramatic. Now for certain, I'll be taking that concentrated fire rule and house ruling it into other versions of Zombicide when I play them, and that might make a huge difference. But the fact that cmon has managed to take the game up a notch, again, streamlined it and just made it more dramatic, really gives me hope for the new Kickstarter of Zombicide Modern, in which we see even more changes being made to streamline the game and make it faster. So is it worth picking up Zombicide Invader? Absolutely, best Zombicide yet. However, with that caveat that, as with all Zombicides, if you miss the Kickstarter, you may be kicking yourself on all the things that you missed out, more so than any other Zombicide yet, because it includes some really core gameplay components. Now, to be clear, this review was only done of the base game. I'm not basing my judgment on any of the Kickstarter stuff. I haven't played with that. I've only played the base game to make this review as fair as I could, but still, it's something to think about. All right, I hope this review helped you to make up your mind about Zombicide Invader. If it did, please hit the like button, especially as a new channel. That really helps to get me a bit more visibility on the reviews. So I would really appreciate that. Hit me up in the comments with any feedback or questions. I'll try my best to answer them. And do consider subscribing for more board game reviews. Until next time, you've been watching Tabletop Dungeon. Safe travels, adventurers.